Yo, what is good, everybody? It's your boy, Golden Falls, Golden What If, whatever you want to call me, and I'm back. This is What If Deku was the reincarnation of Madara Uchiha Part 1. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure to leave a like, leave a sub, leave a comment down below. If you're watching it or listening to it on Spotify, make sure to leave a follow and also a 5-star rating on the podcast. For those on YouTube, go check out the Spotify. For those on Spotify, check out the YouTube, Golden What Ifs, or Golden Anime What Ifs on Spotify. With that said, let's get right into the what if. Let's get it. Izuku Midoriya. He's born into his normal family, but as always, he has no father, or at least his father is always abroad. His mother, on the other hand, would be there all the time, making sure that he's okay, he's taken care of, and everything is fine. But one day, a scary night, his eyes began to flicker, his eyes began to change, and Izuku Midoriya showed off power that no one could understand. Izuku would show that he has these eyes that were blood red, these dark red eyes, and they would begin to shine. His eyes would shine in the darkness of his room, and his mother would walk in to see it, and she'd panic. No, this can't be happening. This can't be happening. She walks out of the room, storming out, and she begins to walk toward her door, but then she looks out the window, and she could hear cars coming very, very fast. Izuku, he's only about 5-6 years old. He hears the commotion walking out, asking his mother what's happening. And he even hears himself the cars coming. The cars would drive, and they would stop right in front of Inko's home. She would tell him to hide in the spot that was so good that it was hard for her to find him for hours. And he runs and he hides, listening to his mother. But soon, he would hear the most foul sounds he's ever heard. He would hear them barge in, bullets fire off, and silence. Silence would be terrifying. They would rummage through and then eventually say that the child isn't here, that he's not here. God damn it. Where is he? They would all run around looking, but eventually they would leave, thinking that the child must be gone, thinking that she put the child somewhere else. Izuku would walk out, and as he does, he would see his mother, the corpse of his mother laying there, and his eyes would change, spiraling out of control and changing forever, slightly, just enough, something that Izuku couldn't even tell himself, but then he would passing out, and then eventually he would wake up later, and there would be heroes everywhere. The heroes would pick up the boy and take him away and ask if he's okay and what's going on. Izuku would say that men came in. He doesn't know exactly, but they killed his mother. They said they were looking for him. Izuku would say these things, and everybody would stand there still. They think that this kid is the wielder of those eyes. But that can't be the case. The father or the last person to wield those eyes, they're gone. There's just no way that kid wields the same eyes. There's no way that he has that power. Someone that many heroes would know, the underground hero, the Eraserhead, Shota Aizawa, would appear. He would take the kid and say that they're going to bring him to UA for safety. They would argue a bit over the terms, but he would say that if this kid is who they say he is, well then they need to take him, bring him to UA, train him, and lead him in the right direction. He just watched his mother die in front of him. Do they really want everything to come crumbling down? Aizawa would leave with the boy and they would listen, and Izuku would arrive at UA. They would begin training Izuku, training the boy to kind of control his power, and who's better, well, than Eraserhead himself. Izuku would continue to work hard, but he would always wonder. What is all of this about? The commotion, his mother's death. What is it all about? And when he was older, just a little bit older, about 10 or 11 years old, Aizawa would explain it to him. He would explain that he is one of a kind. That he has powers that were lost to time. And they all thought that these wouldn't exist anymore. And they think that his father was one of the last to wield it. He explains to him that his father had a very minor version of it. It was like a weird quirk, at least that's what they thought. But now it seems as if Izuku has it as well. And they have their concerns. They have a lot of concerns. I mean, at the end of the day, Izuku could choose a path of darkness, or he can choose a path of light. And Aizawa explains this to him and says that he wants the kid to choose the path made for himself. There is no two things in this world. There is no dark, there is no light. There's so many different things that he could choose. He can walk the line of a normal man, walk the line of a hero, walk the line of a villain, walk the line of a vigilante, and everything in between. He tells him this, and he tells Izuku that they may not be blood, they may not be family, but he will treat him as such. That at the end of the day, he will make sure that he's safe, he's secure, and he'll give him every opportunity he has. He says that the government and many other heroes believe that he should be under more or less constant surveillance, but he's just a kid. Aizawa makes this clear, and since Yue has such heavy backing, and even the backing of the number one hero, All Might, there's agreement on this, that Aizawa will handle him, and Aizawa will handle the responsibilities of taking care of possibly the world's greatest threat or the world's greatest savior. Izuku's power continues to grow every single day, rapidly growing, and he begins to look through books, trying to learn more and more, but he tries to learn and look through these books about all of it, about what's going on, and about what type of person he is. He would look through it, actually a lot, because he wanted to learn more about his eyes, the eyes that he's been utilizing, and he learns of a person. One person. Madara Uchiha. There is a lot of information, but even the vast amounts of information are limited. Not everything is told, not everything is or a guarantee. Some of it is even suggested, but it seems like Madara is so strong beyond comprehension. On top of that, it seems like Madara has similar abilities just like Izuku. He thinks that maybe there's a connection between him and the former Madara Uchiha, but at the end of the day, he's able to make his own choices. The power that he's gained, the abilities that he has, and the power he seeks are all his own. So, what choices does he have truly? With all that said, Isagi would begin learning things that many would think is a fever dream. His eyes would be so powerful. They would be insane. He would gain the ability to use chakra and many other things as well, but obviously nobody has any idea of how any of this works. He's able to make shadow clones of himself. He's able to actually create partial like creatures, it seems, or at least like seems like a suit of armor made out of kind of like this mist, but he doesn't understand it. He doesn't even know, but eventually learns what it's called. It's called a Susanoo, and he finds this to be insane. And he even finds a couple other things about the Sharingan, the eyes that he shows, that he has the Mangekyo, and that there's even more that is unexplained in his own in this world, and also in his own power. Izuku finds all of this to be extremely fascinating and extremely potent, so he decides he'll continue his studies about this as he continues through the years. He would be isolated from everybody, his friends and stuff like that. But truly, there's nothing to worry about. I mean, he was friends with Bakugo, but Bakugo would always kind of bully him. But at the end of the day, he has new friends. He has new people he's been working with. He's been training with Aizawa. He's been training with all of these other teachers, and he continues to do so. And yes, there is people that are terrified of him. There are still people that fear him. But because they feel that maybe those eyes are evil. That those eyes control the user does not control the eyes. And this would terrify them. But Izuku knows that every single choice that is made, every single step he takes is his own. Every single one. And that's what Aizawa instilled in his mind as well. That a realization that every single thing he does is of his own accord. That's it. He may or may not be kind of the reincarnation of Madara, of a person that was bound to conquer the world, a person that was channeling his power for what he seemed to be right, but maybe what others seemed to be wrong. But at the end of the day, Izuku's choices are his own. After years would pass, he would finally be at the right age to attend UA High School. But even with that said, Aizawa makes it very, very clear he wants him to go through the entrance exam. He is just like every other kid. Yes, he had to have some special treatment because of certain things that occurred. And Izuku, being the older kid now and very mature, he would say that he could say it. It was because of his mother's death. And Aizawa would say that is part of it, but there's many more things. His eyes, his power. He needs to understand that he has been gifted. He needs to use those gifts, though, in the long run. Izuku nods and thanks Aizawa and even gives him a hug, telling him that he's been a great father. He runs off and he gets ready for the entrance exam, and Aizawa smirks just slightly and he kind of laughs, thinking that's the first time that kid said that. He walks away and he gets ready to watch the entrance exam, and Aizawa is asked by all the teachers that are currently watching, even All Might, about what he thinks about what's going to happen, how he thinks everything will go. And, well, he thinks that everything will go how it's supposed to. They all stand there and they shake their heads. They would like some sort of comfort. But Aizawa says that the comfort will not come from him. He promises that. But they should watch closely. That will be a spectacle. He walks over toward All Might and asks about, well, you know what. All Might would shake his head, but then tell him that he decided on somebody. But it's been a bit of a rough ride. It's a long story. But he decided on one person. Yeah, and she should be just fine. Aizawa laughs a little bit and smiles and smacks him on the back and says that he hopes that he made the right choice, because he does make some idiotic choices at the end of the day. All Might would say that's not true at all, but Aizawa would look at him, and All Might would eventually agree to that. As they're all talking, Izuku is finally coming to the stage, or coming to the gate. They actually got done with all of the written portion, and Izuku is an absolute genius. So it's very easy for him to pass these things. He's extremely smart, extremely intelligent. He's been studying all his life. And let's be honest, he's been locked up practically in a school for his entire life. So how would he not pass this with flying colors? With all that said, though, Izuku would await at the gate. And right when the gate opens, he would charge out. As he charges out, it seems as if he begins to absolutely kick, punch, and just destroy every single robot he can see. And he would even make shadow clones that would run out and do the same thing as well, destroying, obliterating, and so on and so forth. Izuku would watch as they just get all destroyed, wrecked, and obliterated. And Izuku would smirk, saying this is the first time he's really let loose, the first time he's felt this powerful. He thinks about even trying to use his Susanoo. And yes, his Susanoo isn't perfected, but to him, he doesn't even really know how perfected it truly is. His Susanoo is very, very powerful. It has a full set of armor, a weapon, and so on. And he's pretty proficient in weaponry as well, but decided he would do hand-to-hand combat this time around. He bowls through robot after robot, and after he has quite a bit of points, he decides to slow down, getting rid of all of his clones and just waiting. He waits for kind of all of these other kids to get some more points because he doesn't want to take all of them. That'd be kind of rude, don't you think? So he kind of just awaits everything going on. He watches as everyone struggles. Some do their best and others do pretty well. But as he kind of watches, he begins to feel this rumbling. The rumbling is the 0 Point robot, the robot that he heard about from Present Mike. So he dives off and he begins to run toward that 0 Point robot. And as he's arriving, he actually sees someone trapped, someone about to get squished by that 0 Point robot. He steps in front and he kicks off all the rubble and he begins to summon his Susanoo. It begins to basically show all around him. Everybody is in complete shock, complete awe, as his Susanoo towers as tall as the robot, and he strikes the robot down in an instant. His eyes would begin kind of hurting just a little bit from just the excessive use of his power, and he knows that he kind of went a little too overboard. He probably didn't need to do this. He probably could have shot maybe a little fireball at it or something, but he wanted to do it this way, destroying the robot. And as he turns around, well, he helps the girl up and kind of helps her limp off. Izuku would ask if she's okay, and she said, yeah, that she is, and that she kind of messed up. She's not as good with her quirk as she thought she was. Izuku would say that's fine, and ask her how she did as he kind of sits her down next to Recovery Girl. She would say that she thinks she did well, and Izuku says that's good to hear. He hopes to see her at UA, and as he goes to walk away, she would stop him and say that her name is Melissa. And Izuku would turn and say that his name is Izuku. It's nice to meet her. He would walk away, and he would think that the only way he would see her again is if she passed. Aizawa would walk over to All Might and ask if he's been training her properly, and All Might says yes, but they haven't really been training that long. And a big slap in the face would happen to Aizawa. He would sigh and say that kid needs training as soon as possible, and they need to be on her about it. All Might explains that it really just hasn't been that long, and that's why she's not as good at it. But supposedly she's actually making some items for it. And Aizawa would roll his eyes and say that All Might should have done better at training her, that this is ridiculous. In which there's agreement in some of the people that already know what's going on. And even with that said though, Izuku would knock on the door and Aizawa would meet him out there and say that he did okay. Izuku would laugh and say that he did the best and he already knows it. Aizawa would roll his eyes again and slap him on the head, telling him to not get too confident, not too arrogant. It's unbecoming. Izuku would laugh as they walk off, and All Might would watch as they both do so as well. All Might begins to think that kid, maybe he is the future of this world. Maybe he is the future of Earth, Japan, and all of the above, and maybe there's nothing to worry about. With that said, he runs off toward Melissa, and he actually helps her up, or helps her in general, and helps her try to get a bit of a more grasp on this whole one-for-all thing. Izuku would talk to Aizawa about when they're starting, and Aizawa would explain that it'll be a little while before they fully start, maybe a couple months, add a couple weeks to that. He's not 100% sure. He doesn't pay that much attention to that in terms of the scheduling, and Izuku just rolls his eyes, saying that he guesses he'll just get back to training. So that's exactly what he does. He gets right back into training, trying to perfect his power and trying to just get stronger overall. Izuku wants to get more powerful. He wants to get stronger. He wants to be more efficient. And he starts with utilizing every bit of his power. From training with his Susanoo, his Sharingan, Shadow Clones, Fireball Jutsu, all Jutsus, he wants to work with them, train with them, utilize them. That's what he tries to do. He believes that if he utilizes them in very creative ways, and obviously utilize the power that was given to him by whatever god is out there, he believes that's at the end of the day is what matters. That at the end of the day is what's going to happen and what's going to allow him to prosper. Izuku would continue his training throughout this time, and eventually someone else would show up as well, and it would be good for him because he would actually have a training partner. Melissa Shields would arrive early, and she would talk to All Might while walking through and taking a tour, and All Might would bump in to Izuku. Izuku would actually see her and wave, saying that it's a pleasure to see her again, and All Might asks if they really know each other, and Izuku says that he must have not been watching closely because he kind of saved her from a giant robot. All Might didn't even realize he missed this because, like, how did he miss this? But Melissa says that it was fine. It seems like Izuku had it handled completely and properly. And Izuku would eventually ask if she's going to work on some training to actually perfect her quirk. In which she said, yeah, that's what she's going to do, and she's actually been working on it a lot. She even has some tech. She shows it off how when she turns a simple watch, into this armband that more or less allows her to utilize her quirk more freely, in which this would impress Izuku a lot. He would think that this is pretty damn cool, and well, frankly, he's excited to see what else she can come up with. He assumes that she's going to be in the hero and also support class, which is one hell of a task, but he respects it. He asks if they could train sometime, and let's just say All Might is completely up for that, thinking that's a great idea. So in the next couple weeks before UA would begin, they would begin training together as well, actually growing a bit of a friendship type of bond. And this would be the first person Izuku kind of has talked to that's like close to his age or his age in a long time. So it does help that he's talking to her, because it does get kind of the social weird quirks that Izuku has out of here in a way. But luckily enough, Melissa's pretty forthcoming, and she's pretty nice in terms of just being a genuine person. So she doesn't really hold anything against him in terms of kind of certain speech things he says, or kind of awkwardnesses, or certain speech awkwardness he adds to conversations. And yeah, I mean, they become pretty good friends, and Melissa starts getting a better grasp on her power, in which Izuku obviously doesn't know that it's one for all. Well, not yet, but he doesn't know that it's one for all, and she begins to actually excel at using it, and she learns of more or less one for all full cowling. And it gives her the ability to kind of use one for all at a certain percentage instead of trying to use it in one body part. She's already been hypothesizing about this, and she's already been utilizing it a little bit, but now she's really able to utilize it in a longevity version of it. With all that said, it's now time for the start of UA High School. And Izuku is excited. He's excited to meet the new people. He's excited to get on with the rest of his life and put all this stuff that happened behind him. His life without his mother and stuff like that. He wants to make her proud now. And there's a lot of good things that are coming his way and are the reason why he feels this way. And luckily enough, Aizawa picked him up when he did, because you never know what would have happened to the young little Izuku. With that said, he would walk into his class and he would be one of the first people there. Actually, the other person there already is Melissa. He would sit down next to her and he would actually ask her a couple questions, actually learning that Melissa is 1 year older than him, and he didn't actually know that. She says that, well, it's kind of confusing, but she had to more or less redo this year in terms of, well, going to UA, because in America, she wasn't really doing that part of the education, and the education doesn't really transfer over properly. But she says that she's no dummy. She's, the daughter of the great inventor, David Shield. So, I mean, she promises she's not stupid. And Izuku says that she seems far smarter than him, so he won't question a word that's coming out of her mouth. And she would laugh a little bit and say that he's pretty funny. And they would sit there as all of the rest of their classmates would approach and walk in. A lot of them that are there a lot of the guys would kind of try and talk to Melissa to try to get on her side and try to, be friends with her. And Izuku, he wouldn't be the biggest fan of this, but he would kind of keep a level head. Because in his eyes, that's his first friend, and these guys seem kind of odd. And eventually, the one and only angry Pomeranian would walk in and see Izuku. He'd walk over and he would kind of tell him that he looks exactly like someone he used to know. And then eventually he would click all the things together and he would realize that it's Izuku Midoriya. He would say his name, but then he would say Deku instead, but then interrupt himself and say Izuku. Is that really you? In which Izuku would say yes, and he would appreciate the correction of Deku. That was nice of him. In which Bakugo says he has so many questions. Like, what the hell happened to him? And what's going on? Like, how did he even end up here? In which nothing else is said, and Bakugo is told to sit down by an approaching Aizawa. Aizawa says that they could reconvene some other time, but now it's class. And their class is a little bit different. He tells them all that they're going to do a bit of a quirk assessment test. He wants to see what all of them are capable of. So he tells them all to go outside and get ready. And as they all head out, they are actually told that they're going to be starting with a kind of a test of strength in terms of throwing the ball. He tells Izuku, since he got number 1 in the entrance exam, to come on out. Izuku would catch the ball and he would stand in the circle and launch it. This thing would go spiraling and it would go insanely far. It wouldn't go into space, but it would go so far that really anybody that doesn't have a gravity quirk, like Uraraka, can't really even keep up with how far he just threw it. It was absolutely impressive and absolutely insane. Everybody else tries to kind of keep up, but then eventually words get around and they talk about how, this is so fun and that they're having such a good time. And Aizawa doesn't like the sound of that. He doesn't like when people have fun. He doesn't like when people smile. He doesn't like when people have a good time. So he tells them all that he's going to put stakes to this then. If they think it's so fun, they think it's so awesome that they're throwing a ball around, then cool, awesome. But now it's going to have stakes. He tells them all that if they are in last place, or whoever's in last place, will be expelled. And everybody just completely shuts up. Expelled? No way. Everyone is at a complete loss for words. But, what choice do they have? Aizawa says they'll be expelled if they don't more or less go on with this. And if they get last place, they will be expelled. So they got to do what they got to do. So they try their absolute hardest. Aizawa would watch as his students would do insane work in terms of grip strength, a speed test or a race, and so on and so forth. And Izuku would be at the top of the heap. The person right below him would actually be Melissa. Melissa has improved 1,000 times. She's incredible now. So much better, and her growth rate is just absolutely insane. In terms of the people below, we have people like Bakugo, Todoroki, Momo, and people that are extremely good off the bat. And the person at the very bottom is actually Hagakure. It's an invisible girl, but luckily Aizawa would stop her crying by saying that it's actually not true. He was just trying to get them to do their absolute best, so he made a bit of a hoax. In which Izuku would walk over to him a little bit later as they're walking back to class and ask him if it really was a hoax, or does he now have a soft spot in his heart because the little girl was crying. In which Aizawa would look at him with a sharp look, and then even have his eyes glow red and say that he's not the only one that could scare people. And Izuku would kind of flinch at this and ask him not to hit him with his scarf, and he would kind of walk away and apologize very quickly. Izuku would kind of run off really fast, not wanting to deal with the wrath of Shota Aizawa, and he runs off and actually bumps into Melissa. And Izuku apologizes, but Melissa says that it's completely fine. She laughs about the relationship that him and Aizawa have, and it's as if it's one that it's more or less father and son. Izuku would agree and then basically say that he raised them more or less for, the most of the years that he's been alive, or at least over half, and frankly, that is like his father. And Melissa would think that is cool. There's definitely aspects of his personality that are very similar to Aizawa's, so it makes sense. They kind of laugh about it a little bit, and the next day they would actually get a new version of training. The quirk assessment was interesting. It was pretty fun. But how about training with the one and only All Might? All Might would come busting through the door and say he's walking through the door like a normal person, but we all know he's not. And All Might tells them all that they're going to be doing heroes versus villains. And he hopes all of them are excited. He tells them all to go outside, get on their hero outfits, and get ready for some intense training. But that is for part 2 of What If Deku was the reincarnation of Madara Uchiha. And if you enjoyed, show some love. Leave a like, leave a sub, and leave a comment down below. All that good stuff. And as always, if you're watching this on Spotify, I don't know if I said this in the beginning, but if you're watching on Spotify, make sure to leave a follow and a 5-star rating. All of these videos will eventually go on Spotify. Spotify gets them a little late, so you get them earlier on YouTube. And I just wanted to say that really quick. But that's all I got to say. I hope all y'all have an amazing day. Later.